Hello everyone, I'm Mike. I work here at the Scott County Public Library in Georgetown, Kentucky, and today represents the final episode of our three-part series on coffee preparation. You'll recall that our first episode was about roasting coffee beans and how to store them. Our second episode, which was last week, we discussed how to brew coffee and how to ground coffee, how to grind it. And I used the French press method, but my friend here, Cameron, who also works here at the library, has another method for you. So I'll let him talk about it. Oh, one thing I did want to mention that I haven't mentioned in our past videos, water. I don't know about Cameron, but I use bottled water or filtered water. I find it makes a difference. If you use tap water, what you're dealing with is chlorine. And some people can detect that, I can, so give it a try, bottled water or filtered water. Cameron, it's all yours.
All right, and I agree with you there. I also use bottled water that you can get at basically any local store. You'll want to find the one that tastes right to you, but it really does make a difference. So the way that I brew coffee most mornings is pour over, and this is really the device that you use for that right here. This plastic thing with a paper filter in it. And so the way that it works is you are going to swirl it around, sort of mimicking what you would get through a coffee machine, but you get to control the variables, which include the temperature of the water, the grind of the beans if you do choose to grind them yourself, and even the speed at which you pour. And so I'm going to show you how I do that right here. I have my mug. I'm going to brew directly into the mug. I have my beans. I like to always have, when you're doing pour over, one of the most important things is precision. So I keep a scale and I use grams. However you want it, you're going to want it to be as precise as you can afford. The water is ready right here. And for my taste, I like light roast coffee. And with light roast coffee, typically it's recommended with a pour over to do it as hot as possible. So this is boiling water. Now, the first step is typically going to be to wash the paper out of that filter. And so I'm washing it right now. I'm going to put about 100 grams of water in, and it's hot. And one thing you may have noticed is that this is a typical paper filter we have here. I forgot my paper filter at home, but with pour over, the filter isn't that big of a deal. And since you can control all the variables, that includes if you have a filter like this, then you can probably find some way to get it to your liking. I have some water in the bottom of this. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the sink. And I'm doing a really basic tutorial of this right now. But typically, I'd actually, fill the entire mug with water so that it would be just as hot as I would like it to be when I start drinking. So the ratio that I'm working with is roughly 1 in 16, and that's that's coffee to water. So I have 30 grams of coffee, and I'm going to be brewing 500 grams of water. So I'm going to go ahead and tear that out, and I'm going to start with what's called a bloom, and that's going to be double the weight of the beans, so I'm going to go with 60 grams or so. You're always a little over and a little under. And I'm just going to swirl that around just a little bit. And so typically I'd have a timer and I'd have around 45 seconds. I've done this enough that I can tell when that 45 seconds is about there. And so we'll wait. What the bloom does is lets the excess CO2 escape from the coffee beans, and when it's done, you just start pouring the rest of it. Now, there are a lot of methods, a lot of different ways. I have my own, but for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to pour the rest of it, starting right now. Now, if I start getting above the paper, I will stop. But as you can see, I'm just pouring in circular motions, trying to get the dark spots just a couple inches above the pour over vessel. And I'm going to pour until I get to about 500.
So Cameron, I know I'm the cameraman, but I can already see the difference here is over a regular coffee drip, which drips only in one spot.
Mm-hmm.
You get to take advantage of the whole area with
Right.
this.
Yeah, that's one of the things. You get to make sure that, the entire bed of coffee is getting saturated with water. And another important thing is the temperature. A lot of the home coffee makers are not really getting the water as hot as you need it to be. So with me, I can completely control how hot I want it. For my light roast, I like them to be, at boiling. So that's 112 degrees. For darker roast, I can go a bit lower than that, usually around, I don't even know where I'm at here. Around 190 or 195. So right now, I'm about at 500. All right, a little above it, but that's fine. Gonna swirl it around a little bit. That's gonna get the coffee that's on the side of that filter. You want it all. And there's some other methods. Some people like to tap it. Some people like to spin it around with a spoon, but a little twirl something will do you well.
I want to show that canister that you have. That has a temperature gauge at the top.
Yeah. It's if you're going with light roast, boiling is fine, so you can kind of wait till it's just it just starts whistling. But for my purposes, if I do have like a dark roast, and the coffee I get, it comes kind of randomly to me every other week, which I like because I get to play around with it. Sometimes the roasts are a little darker, so it's good to have the temperature. And we are through. I'm gonna go ahead and throw away this filter. Put this in the sink, and my cup of coffee is ready to drink.
Let's take a look.
That's pour over coffee. There's lots of, if you are interested in it after this, you can find a lot on the internet. All types of websites, video websites, forums. There's all types of information, and the coffee community is very kind. So thank you for watching, and I hope you do give it a try.
Thank you, Cameron. That is one good looking cup of coffee. Folks, thank you for tuning in to these 3 episodes of Preparing Coffee. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you learned an awful lot. Take care, folks.